empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to Scoop World Order. It is Monday night. It's going to get raw. I got Nevadabuck on here with me. We're going to talk about quarterback recruiting. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the different things going on with the jack position. A lot of things, a lot of fun stuff. I think you guys are going to enjoy this one. So we're going to get right into it. Real quick, as always, thank you guys. We appreciate you guys. We're grateful for you guys. We're thankful for you guys. We always have a blast with you guys on here. Click like, click subscribe. Help us out. We appreciate you guys. And bring those questions as fast and as furiously as you can. Going to get right into my guy, Nevada. Nevada, how are you today?
I'm doing great. It's exciting Monday night. Seems like there's no off season with Ohio State football and the portal and conference expansion and quarterback recruiting. So lots going on even during the off season. So excited to talk about it.
Yeah, our site is exceptionally active right now. Like our message board is really cranking right now. Talking about expansion, talking about players in new spots, recruiting, James Laurinaitis getting bumped to being on the road potentially. What does Ryan Day do there? But something that DeJuan Jones said is something that's really interesting. DeJuan Jones was asked by media at the Senior Bowl, who do you think should play the jack position, the hybrid spot in Jim Knowles' defense is something that I think was hyped up and a lot more underutilized than he'd done in the past in the Big 12. I mean, it was only deployed for 15 to 20 plays a game. Jack Sawyer did it. I think he needs to go back to playing defensive end personally. It's not because I don't like Jack. I just think that, when you only run a formation, 20 plays a game and Jack's one of your best 11 guys, he needs to be the other starting defensive end this year, and you need to audition some new guys. So DeJuan Jones said that the two guys that should play Jack this year are CJ Hicks and Sonny Styles, which is something that Nevadabuck has said multiple times. But Nevada, what was your reaction to that? Were you, I don't want to say vindicated in that you've been saying something like that, finding a role for those guys, maybe a more explosive guy at that spot? What is your thought on DeJuan saying that Sonny Styles and CJ Hicks should be the 2023 Jack linebacker people?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank DeJuan for being a subscriber to our channel and for stuff like getting his information from here. But DeJuan, Big D, if you're out there, man, I love you. Appreciate everything you did for us. But no, look, I think if you kind of really do the detective work on it and say, look, you have to get those guys on the field in some way, shape, or form. So then let's kind of break it down. Are they going to play offense? They're going to play defense. Well, they're going to play defense. Well, then are they going to play, interior line? No. Are they going to play in front of Steele and Tommy? No. So are they going to play the corner? No. So there's really only a handful of spots that you can really put them. And I'm telling you, the more I think about it, the more I'm intrigued. I know we talked a little bit about it on our last podcast, but the whole idea of seeing, what a Baron Browning type like a Sonny Styles could do off the rush end is really intriguing. That's really kind of what you're talking about with the Jack. You're talking about a guy that kind of stands up and moves around and does some things, and they've used him differently. But boy, I look at that and say with Sonny or with CJ having those guys, those speed rushes off the end. I mean, I just think that would really create some matchup problems, and for an Ohio State defense that's if we really kind of zoom down on the problems, or I shouldn't say the problems, but the disappointments from last year, the stuff that surprised us was one, we didn't get as many sacks, we didn't generate as many turnovers, we didn't create as many negative plays as we thought we would, and this would be a way to kind of crank all those things up. And I think we're going to see it. I mean, I've been hearing it enough from people. When DeJuan says it, it's been discussed in the room, and it's been talked about, amongst the guys. So I really think that's something that we're going to see this year, and I'm excited about it because you got to find a role for those young guys. They're so talented, and I think that they'll add an energy burst to a defense that's already going to be really, really good. I think it could take it to the next level and really make a difference.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic thing to empower some young guys into a new spot. I think Jack obviously needs to go play defensive end with JT. They're the two third-year guys. They're the two best defensive ends on the roster, and I think Jack needs to play 50 to 60 plays a game. I don't think that the hardest part about being the starting Jack and playing the Jack position is honestly, it's kind of like if you say, well, Mitch Rossi is the starting fullback for Ohio State. And it's like, well, that's awesome. And 15, 20 years ago, that would have been, a really significant role. But like, how often do we really use a fullback? 5, 10 plays a game. And that was kind of what the Jack turned into. It's kind of like, we're going to run it. We're going to play it for 10, 15 plays a game. And the guys that were in that package, like Jack, who was the starting Jack, would end up playing 10, 15 plays, 20 plays a game. And he didn't play that traditional defensive end role, which was really questionable to me as to why. Because I don't think that, by playing Jack, it's so intricate and complex that you couldn't also play defensive end at the same time. Now, maybe I'm crazy, but it just isn't that hard of a position to play and to learn. And this is coming from a guy in myself who actually has done substantial studying of Jim Knowles' defense. I've studied his Chalk Talks, clinic tapes, a lot of the stuff that he's done offline that isn't done, in front of like a media session or whatever. And I really know the position. And he pitched it as a position at the Ohio High School Football Association clinic last year, where it's like, where you put that undersized, tough guy that he might not be big enough to be a D tackle or fast enough to be a linebacker or angular enough to be a D end, but he's kind of like that, mishmash. And in high school, there's a lot of those guys where you don't get to recruit him and you got to kind of find roles for guys. And that's kind of what he pitched it. I mean, his guy that ran it at Oklahoma State was a kind of a tweener. He was a wrestler. He was not a Jack Star. He wasn't a 5-star guy who weighed 260. He was more of like a 6'3", 235-ish guy. And I think that, that's kind of like a CJ Hicks, and it could, if Sonny keeps growing, it could be a Sonny Styles. And it's got to be a guy who's exceptionally tough because, a lot of the dirty parts that you don't see to the Jack is that you're doing some stuff that isn't glamorous. Like you're taking on pulling guards and cutting their knees out and making a pile. And you're doing, it's not just, hey, let's get a flashy blitz drawn up where you get to be the free hitter and kill the quarterback. It's like, no, you got to go do some nasty stuff. Because I watched this film and it's a nasty position. You got to be a nasty dude to play it. And I think initially guys were really excited about it. I think a lot of guys were really ready to rock on it. But then, as the season went on, we just didn't really use it that much because we played in the Big Ten, and the Big Ten and the Big 12 are just completely different from offensive schematic standpoints. I mean, you see a lot more spread, no huddle spread, full field read spread in the Big 12 than you do in the Big Ten. The Big Ten, you play Illinois, you play Michigan, you play Wisconsin, you play Michigan State. It is a, outside of like Purdue, it is a more mixed, 50-50 type conference, a lot more power run in the Big Ten, obviously, because you can't do the chuck and duck stuff in the Big Ten because when it gets cold and rainy out, the chuck and duck doesn't work very well, and we found that out.
Did you say chuck and suck? Did you say chuck and suck?
Chuck and duck. That's what we do. Okay. That's what we did 2 years ago on offense at Michigan. It's like the chuck. Like you can have the prettiest flying aerial attack in the world, but when it's snowy and cold out and that ball's like a cinder block, and all of a sudden guys don't want to catch the ball or you can't throw the ball real well, then you better be able to run it. And in the Big 12, it doesn't get that cold and snowy and terrible like it does in the Big 10 in November. So, but what are your thoughts on that, Nevada?
Yeah, no, I think, look, I think for Ohio State next year is going to be, really, really interesting because I think that they're on both sides of the ball. We're in year 2 of the Knowles experiment. We're in kind of the new era of the Ryan Day experience because I really think Ryan Day found something in the Georgia game. I think he found himself from a emotion standpoint, from a offensive attacking standpoint. I really think he found something. So I think we're going to see a different Ohio State on both sides of the ball. And, it's going to really be interesting to see how these things kind of manifest themselves with the guys and with how we attack teams offensively, how we attack teams defensively, what we do. And, Knowles is, look, the defense is going to be good. I will go all in on the fact that, people that are like, oh, let's fire Jim Knowles or this defense stinks. I'm telling you, you're wrong. You're just wrong. The defense is going to be really, really good next year. Top 10 defense in every significant statistical category, probably top 5 in a bunch. And I'll go in on that, and people can hold me. They can run this tape back on me, and if State's not there, then we can all laugh at Nevada's expense. But I'm telling you, this defense is going to be really good. And when it does, like I said, there's going to be room on the Knowles bandwagon. So I'm saving a spot for a lot of people. You guys can hop on and join the Knowles fan club, and I'll save you guys a spot.
The Knowles fan club. That's interesting. Well, yeah, I mean it's gonna be it's a big year for him. You know, it's gonna be exciting. I think that the talent is gonna be higher. You know, I think that some of these guys that are really good
No,
athletes.
Kirk, I'm going to call it the KFC, the Knowles fan club, the KFC. How about that?
KFC. I've never heard of that before.
KFC,
Do you guys,
yeah, isn't that great? KFC,
so
yeah, exactly.
does it,
People
does it,
don't.
does this make you the colonel of the KFC?
I want to be the colonel. I like
All right.
KFC.
You,
I'm a
you
fan.
are the
For
colonel.
people out there that I love to order KFC. I love to go to KFC. I think KFC is underrated. So this is perfect. The Knowles fan club, KFC, and I am the colonel.
This is perfect. I love it. We're gonna take some questions now on that note as Colonel Nevada. I don't even know where to go. That was actually fantastic. You came up with that. Dave Rice, appreciate you, brother. You're on every show. Thank you so much. The word on Court Williams. Now, Court Williams is a guy. Again, he's like, yeah, we had a bunch of guys that he was a captain this year, didn't play at all. I think he was hurt by the end of the year. I don't know what the word is on Court. I know he's back. Again, he was one of the captains that didn't play, like Tyler Friday and some of these guys. But you know, until he does something, I just don't know where he plays at. I mean, he's kind of a funky dude because he's a sawed-off guy. You'd think that he'd be kind of built like a linebacker, but he's not very big. So you kind of put him at safety. But I mean, God, safety is a really deep position now, and it's like I just don't know where you rep him when you've got, you know, you got Proctor coming back, which pushes him further down the depth chart because they're not the same guy. Josh is much better than Court is, but you know, you got Lathan at the adjuster. You've got, you know, Josh or Sonny or whoever, or Kai Stokes or whoever at the Bandit. You know, I mean, like I don't know where you fit Court. I wouldn't put him in the nickel spot where he's got to be more of a coverage guy. But your thoughts on Court Williams about it? Do you think we get anything out of him this year? Because I mean, he didn't really play at all last year. I think he was hurt at some point, but you know, I don't know what to make of a guy that doesn't ever seem to be on the field. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, look, his teammates couldn't speak higher of him, and the coaches couldn't think more of him. But having said that, we haven't seen it. So, look, it's going to go one of two ways. He's either going to be one of those guys that comes out of nowhere and does amazing things, and you know, late in his career at Ohio State, and there are plenty of guys that have done it that way, and we've all seen it. We could all go through the list of the names of the guys that have, you know, been kind of late bloomers, late contributors at Ohio State. But it seems like the odds are long of that, as you said, because there's just so many younger guys coming in that are young, talented guys at that position. And, you know, I'm just not sure if sometimes injuries kind of derail you at the wrong time. And, you know, you think back on your career, you know, Kirk, if you'd have been injured at a certain spot and somebody else had come in and grabbed the spot, then maybe you don't ever play, you know what I'm saying? Or don't play a lot because, you know, sometimes the window opens and you got to step in, grab your spot, hold your spot, and you know, then they move on to other spots in terms of doing it. But you own that, you know, piece of terrain, and I just, you know, I think it's going to be an uphill battle for Court, but I'm rooting for him because he's such a great kid, so highly regarded, such a hard worker. Couldn't happen to a better kid, but it's long odds for sure.
Well, I mean, you know, for me, I just you know, you can't make the club in the tub. I mean, that was a Parcells saying that I totally agreed in. But you have to be able to stay healthy. I mean, again, like if you're, you know, in Marine boot camp or you're in Bud's camp to be a Navy SEAL, you know, you could be the most beloved, the toughest, the baddest dude in the world. But, you know, if you blow your Achilles tendon out or you break your leg or whatever, or you whatever, like you don't get to be a SEAL if you get injured. Like they don't say, oh, now you're the, commanding officer, because because if you don't make it through buds, then you don't make it. Period. Doesn't matter what the reason is. That's kind of what it is, and like that's why it is at Ohio State. Like I think Ohio State it's a lot of opportunity, it's a lot of hard work, but it's also a lot of luck because I was fortunate. I had a myriad of injuries throughout my career, but I never had an ACL. I had an MCL, which kept me out for about 4 weeks during the '05 season, middle of the season. Never blew an Achilles, thank God. In the NFL, I tore my hamstring. Had a heart issue that cost me a year. And again, like it just it's tough, because if kids are really good and they're doing great and whatever, but then they suffer that severe injury. I mean, it's really hard to pencil them in for a role. I mean, that's the thing is guys have to be able to stay healthy. And I've seen guys that I've covered the program for, played with, that were really good dudes. Like, I mean, Drew Carter was one of the nicest kids in the universe, tore his ACL twice at Ohio State. And, it still ended up having a nice NFL career, played 6 or 7 years in the league, drafted by the Panthers, ran a 4.3 at Pro Day. But he can never really stay healthy. He never had that kind of maximum impact that you had hoped that he would have at Ohio State because he just flat out couldn't stay healthy. And it's not his fault that his ACL kept tearing, but that's part of the gig and part of the luck sometimes. Nevada, we get this, I think, every day, but Rick, appreciate you, my man. Is this year Jack Story breaks out?
Well, I mean, he has to. I mean, he has to. He knows it. Everybody around him knows it. And, it just depends on what we're expecting in terms of a breakout. I think a breakout would be double digits. I think double digits is kind of that line between, success and failure for a defensive end. He went to 4.5 sacks last year, which, as we've talked about many, many times, was the team leader on Ohio State, which is just, I mean, I'll give you a crazy stat is that if you take out the Penn State game, I think JT Tumalo had 1 sack, but the rest of the season or something like that. I mean, so we didn't get a lot of sacks last year. So do I think Jack breaks out? I really do. I mean, uh, his talent from high school to college has certainly not translated. His talent from practice to games hasn't translated. And I've seen him do stuff in practice that's just silly. And but I just think he just hasn't had enough. It's like a baseball player that doesn't get enough at reps. He's not getting enough at bats, and when you don't get enough at bats, then you're going into that jack position, and as you said, maybe you're eating up blocks or creating a pile or blowing up something so somebody else can come free or whatever it is. I just don't think he's had enough chances to do his thing. And then when he was out there, he looked a little stiff, and that's just the way it is. So uh, I'm buying Jack Sawyer stock. I think he's going up, and I'm calling double-digit sacks for both him and JT this year. And I think it's going to be a big reason why the Ohio State defense takes a huge step forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Jack needs to get back to playing defensive end. I think that I would go to Larry Johnson and say, look, I want to be the starting defensive end. Let somebody else have the jack role. The jack role just doesn't get deployed enough. Like we run it for 10 plays and we don't run it in a very aggressive manner. We don't, he's not, they barely ever use it in a passing situation. It's mostly a running situation. They don't use it as aggressively as they did at Oklahoma State. I've watched all the film. Oklahoma State, it was a downhill blitzing type position. Here it's a lot more passive. It's read the guard, see if he pulls or if he zone blocks, make your fit. And frankly, when we ran it, we weren't very good at it because again, we don't run it enough. So if you don't run it enough, it's hard to get good at it in game. And we got gashed by Michigan and we got gashed by Georgia for 70-yard runs. And both times we were in the jack formation. So I'd can it, never run it again, but that's me. This isn't the Big 12. I'd go back to just running a 4-down set, the regular nickel stuff that we do the other 95% of the time because I feel like it works better. Super chat, appreciate you, my man. I'm not sure if this is not a question, this is a comment. Give Coach Smith some podcast pointers sometimes. Love the work. Not sure if that means Coach Zach Smith, I would assume. Zach does a great job. I don't know what I could possibly do to help him, but he does a really good job. He's one of the best in the business. I mean, again, people, they love his show. His numbers are great. They're fantastic. Sue, this is a great question. Who will decide who plays the Jack? LJ Knowles. I believe it's Jim Knowles. That's kind of his baby. He came in, talked a lot of bluster about this jack position. I think that LJ doesn't know it like Jim Knowles knows it. I mean, I'm sure he's been taught it over the year that he's been working with Jim. He's professional, obviously, but it isn't quite the down defensive end spot that LJ's known for his whole career. It's closer to linebacker in my opinion from just studying it. But I think that it ultimately was Jim Knowles, and I think that as you have this potential depth scenario in the back end at safety and even at linebacker with Tommy coming back and obviously still I think you got to put CJ Hicks there. You got to try him out. You got to give him a role in the defense where he gets to attack and have fun and wreak havoc. And I think he could be good at it. But again, I just think that when we ran it, we just weren't productive running it. So I don't know how much we'll continue to run it. It'll be interesting to see how much they self-scout it and see how much it causes problems. Because again, it didn't cause the problems like it did in the Big 12. And I don't know if that's because obviously, we were playing Michigan and Georgia, who have literally the two best offensive lines of the country per the Joe Moore, where they were number 1 and 2 as the finalists. But and sometimes you just get caught. But that's a great question. Are you Nevada? We talk a lot about the jack. How much would you play? Would you play it more or less than per average that we did last year?
Well, I think I'd play it more, but I'd play it differently. I to me, what I thought the advantages that you had on the jack, I thought were more on passing downs than on running downs. And as you pointed out, very adeptly earlier, they used it more as kind of an early down run blitz kind of type of set, which to me didn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense. I would use it more as kind of a attacking, blitzing, and passing down kind of set. So, I think it's just a question of how it's deployed, as opposed to sheer numbers, but it would be more, and it would be more on passing downs, and more of an attack, get after the quarterback type of situation.
Nevada, who's a breakout player that nobody is talking about?
Well, the breakout player that no one is talking about.
That's hard because we talk about literally every player on the roster. I
Yeah,
feel like.
we do, but I'm gonna stick with my Reed Carrico call, because nobody's talking about Reed Carrico. No one, no one, no one, no one. People didn't remember that he's even on the team. So I'm gonna go with Reed Carrico as my breakout contributing player that nobody's even talking about, because I think he's really good. And I know he's really athletic. I mean, I've said this on the board before, but pound for pound, speed, strength. I mean, he is right up. He might be right at the top of the chart. He's as good as anybody on the team, pound for pound. I mean, he's a freaky athlete. Was unbelievable on both sides of the ball in high school. Tough, tough, tough kid. Just has not found a way to put it together yet. But I think they're going to find a role for him, and I think he's going to make an impact. At least I'm certainly hopeful that does, because he's either going to do it or he's going to find greener pasture somewhere else. And I really hope he finds his way here, because I really love that kid.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'll go Carson Hinsman. He's a guy that obviously the most eye-opening comments from last week were Justin Frye talking about the fact that I'm going to leave my guards where they are. I'm going to leave Matt Jones at right guard, leave Donnie at left guard, at least initially. Because that initially, when you say that, that means you think Carson Hinsman is going to be your guy at center. You're not going to run Matt at center, at least initially. And again, everything can change after the first week. Guys can go up, can go down. Who knows? But, if you're going to have, Victor Cutler, a transfer from Louisiana Monroe, who played left tackle there, and Carson compete at center, I just can't see how Carson isn't just a monumental favorite to win that job. Just with the fact that he was the number 1 center 2 years ago. He's going into year 2. He's the same age as Luke Whippler was in 2021 when he took over the center job over Harry Miller. And I think that that's the guy that nobody's talking about. He wasn't the first guy off the bench. He was the highest rated guy. Played in the Under Armour All-American, or excuse me, the Army All-American game. But Tigro was the first freshman in last year when they had mop-up time. He played left guard for us and did a nice job. I think Tigro's a guy that they probably can put him out at tackle. Ryan Day said they're going to play him a little bit at tackle, but he's lost a lot of weight, and he's gotten in much better shape than he was initially. A year ago when he was 350-ish, 345-ish. He is much leaner. I saw him in person. I mean, I'd bet he's probably 320, 325, but much more svelte, just looks better, less doughy, which is great. I mean, that means that, Mickey put the screws to him, and that's the thing is when you go to Ohio State, man, they do that. They do the body pod or the bod pod. You get your body fat measured, and man, it's like if you put up a bad number on that thing, it's a bad day. So, they measure that stuff, and if you got a high number, man, if you're above, mid 20s or whatever, it's going to be a lot of cardio to get that fat off you. So, um, it's interesting. I love some of these questions. I think I know what this is. I think they said they're talking about who Reed is dating. I think that this is like there's some viral dumb thing where it's like everybody says that they're dating Margot Robbie. That's like a thing on Instagram and Twitter right now. I don't think Reed is quite dating Margot Robbie. If he is, God bless him. But it's like they just got to do that as like a running joke with pretty much anybody. They had Toby Wilson dating her. It's kind of if he's dating her, he needs to retire, quit football, and go do anything she tells him to do. But Nevada Ron Yoder, it's a great question. I don't understand how you can hire someone these days that doesn't like to recruit to be your defensive coordinator. Well, Jim Knowles struck out on linebackers last year. We did not sign a single linebacker. Nevada, your thoughts on that? Because it is interesting because I think that there's, it's hard to find a guy that can do it all. Maybe Brian Hartline is a guy that can do it all. It'll be interesting to see how he does coordinating an offense. But to find a guy that's a good technical coach along with a dynamic all-star level recruiter, there just aren't many of them. And if you have them, you're going to have them for a year or two, and then they're going to go be a head coach. But your thoughts on that, on Jim Knowles, his recruiting, and if it gets better, or your thoughts on would you hire a coordinator that can't recruit?
Well, it's funny because Knowles gets a lot of the attention for that, but and I'm trying to think back on the past 5 years. How many times have we ever heard say, "Wow, how can we have an offensive coordinator that doesn't recruit?" But that's exactly what we had with Kevin Wilson. We had an offensive coordinator that didn't recruit, but nobody ever said anything about it. But Knowles also, here's the things I hear about Knowles every day: how much money he makes, that he's from the Big 12, and that he can't recruit. And so it is amazing that Knowles has become the whipping boy, and there's always one, there's always thing, and it gets the fire. It manifests itself in all these little subtle ways. But no, how do I feel about having a defensive coordinator that can't recruit? To me, that's not the core competency that you need out of your defensive coordinator. You need your offensive coordinator to be really good at calling plays. You need your defensive coordinator to be really good at designing defenses, and you've got a bunch of other guys that can recruit. I would place game planning and in game adjustments way above recruiting, because I think recruiting is something that it's probably a bit better. It's a young man's game. It's somebody who's a little bit more contemporary with the kids, and some of these old wise. You got Dick LeBeau as your defensive coordinator. You probably don't want to put him on the on the recruiting trail out there, hustling kids. But so how's it feel to have a coordinator, isn't it? We've had it. We've had it for years. It's been that way at Ohio State for years and years and years. But for some reason, under Knowles, all of a sudden, it's become an issue.
I just don't know if there's ever been like a great defensive coordinator recruiter at Ohio State.
I mean, Jim Haycock, did he recruit anybody?
I mean, that's what I mean. Like we had Jim Haycock, we had Chris Ash, we had. Halfley was here for 5 minutes. I don't know. I mean, Schiano. I mean, was he I mean, maybe he was amazing, but I never heard like kids saying, "Man, it's Greg Schiano's this dynamic." Like, they never won any of the Rivals Recruiter of the Year awards, or or anything like that. So it is kind of interesting. I mean, offensively, obviously, we had Bowles, we had Jim Bowman, we had Herm was decent, Ed not so much. Like it's just kind of is what it is. Like again, there's always whipping boys. Again, it's Bill Greene talked about on the podcast earlier that I mean, Justin Fry's got like a year. I mean, his year is up, so now it's go time, and we're gonna see how good he is, because that's part of the gig at Ohio State. We were joking about how offensive line guys are whipping boys. And really, if you just coach at Ohio State, you're going to be a whipping boy at some point. Generally, I think that I mean, Zach was clearly a whipping boy. Ed Warner Herman, Fickle. I mean, they all took their lashings, from the fan base, because this is kind of how it is. Like it's not generally a realistic thing, but it's just the truth. I mean, this is how it works around here. And but yeah, that's a great question. Again, it's spawned like a whole new subset of, have we ever had a great recruiting defensive coordinator? Because I don't know if we have. I mean, and maybe
I mean,
I'm
remember
missing it.
when D'Antonio was back there? No, D'Antonio wouldn't even talk to anybody. Probably the greatest defensive coordinator Ohio State ever had. He wouldn't talk to anybody.
Well, yeah, I mean, 'cause he had no personality. Like, and I love Dino, but
Ugh.
like he's not like some, hey buddy, let's be friends. And again, he was before social media and everything at Ohio State, so there wasn't texting, and there wasn't Instagram and tweeting and all that. But Dino was strictly a ball coach. Like he wasn't, like again, I think a lot of the old school guys, they just flat out hate recruiting. They hate the pomp, they hate the constant attention that some of these kids need, and I think they kind of roll their eyes at it. And I think young coaches that maybe haven't earned any stripes, but they're trying to figure out a way to have some sort of value on the staff. They're like, well, I can tweet this kid 6 million times and text him and call him and whatever. Yeah. So I get it's hard to find that blend of like the guy that's like got the dynamic base of like a young recruiter, but also has the knowledge base of like an old time ball coach that's been in the wars for 30 years. So, but no, that was a great question. I'm telling you, it is interesting. I love bringing Pruitt. You got a show cause. Yeah, I know and the funny thing is like, I thought that, one of the guys that's the best offensive line coach or recruiters, he just went to the NFL, Adrian Clem. He got a show cause at UCLA, was banned from being in college for like 3 or 4 years. So he went and coached at the Steelers, came back to Oregon for 2 years. Then he just took the Patriots O-line job today. So, um, it's really interesting. Sue, you got another good one. All right. Zach Smith often talked about this year how great our wide receivers are at route running, but they aren't great blockers at all. Do you agree? And he said, I thought Fleming did a good job blocking, but what do I know? Nevada, do you have any thoughts on that before I give my thoughts on that?
Well, I thought that they were willing. I agree with Fleming was definitely probably the best of the bunch, but I think they were willing, but um, we weren't particularly proficient at it, and I think it cost us a lot of our longer runs that could have got opened up by the guys that were more aggressive, more tenacious blockers. And look, you'd like to have it all. You'd like everybody to have the the blocking of Alan Lazard and the skill set of Justin Jefferson, and sometimes you just don't get that. And can it be taught? And sure, but I think some of it's just kind of innate and it's kind of who they are. I mean, Marvin Harrison's certainly strong enough to do it. We've talked about ad nauseum about he's got NFL strength. He had NFL strength the moment he set foot on the campus. He certainly has it now. 2-3 years into the program. So the guys are they've got the ability to do it. It's just following through on it. Making sure that's a point of emphasis for them. And I think if they did that, little things like that are the difference between a 10, 12-yard run and maybe a 60-yard run. So yeah, I think it can definitely make a big difference.
I think that it's just kind of a trickle down from the NFL. I think a lot of these guys want, obviously longevity wise, they want to play as long as possible. And if you watch NFL football, the receivers and corners almost have like a union type agreement where, hey, I won't block you if you don't make the tackle. If we can just stand here and chill, and this has been going on. This isn't like some new phenomenon. This has gone on for decades. Where you watch guys that kind of just they just chill on the edges if there's like an interior run or a run away from them, and it's really trickled down to watching our guys. Our guys a lot of times they kind of give the effort or the illusion of it, but they don't really like to get their nails dirty. So they don't go and like cold cock a guy or knock a dude out. Or I mean, I can't remember the last time we've cracked a guy down in the box. Like I mean, we had we had Santonio, and we had that one reverse sweep to Ted Ginn that went for 80 yards or whatever it was. Santonio killed a guy, and like I just don't know if we have guys that are dudes like that. Now I'm not saying they're not fantastic wide receivers and they won't be Pro Bowlers and all that, but it takes a different cat like a Santonio to go in there and crack a linebacker and about kill him. So and again, I don't know if that's taught. Certainly like under Urban. Like I mean, if these guys didn't block, they weren't playing. So I think that guys got beat up. We didn't have near the caliber of receiver, at least initially when Urban got here. So I think he was probably a lot more. He was a lot more willing to throw these guys kind of into the mosh pit that is blocking when you've got like a Marvin or an Emeka or or Jackson Smith and Jigba, Garrett Wilson. I don't know if you want to throw them down in there the way that you throw Evan Spencer down there and Philly Brown and some of these guys that were lesser guys. But Evan Spencer, if he doesn't crack that guy, then we don't get an 85-yard run against Bama. I promise you. I've watched that film a million times, and I was just amazed at the fact that he cracked the guy so hard that it took out the backside guy too. I mean, it's like you can't draw it up any perfect. I mean, it was just like one of those miracles where he tripped the backside guy and there was just nobody home, and all of a sudden it's just 85 yards versus a really good defense, a defense that frankly, a lot of people think that we just whooped them up and down the field, but if you really study the tape, I mean, that was a really good defensive front, and I mean, we broke some long runs and we had some really smart opportunistic plays, but there were a lot of plays, man, where they were punishing to go against. And but no, that's a great question. Like, again, I think that the hardest part in modern football with the way we do it is there has to be this balance between your receivers getting too beat up from blocking and really cold cocking guys versus, all right, guys, come on, we need you to give us a little bit more, because I think that we've just gotten away from being physical on the perimeter. Now we're ultra skilled and we're ultra, we're going to get 1 million yards and a lot of catches and stuff. But, I think that, we're just not as physical on the edge. And Zach, again, if Zach says it, it's probably true because Zach was a receiver. He's not being a hater, but he studies film and he knows what is good high level football versus what isn't. And if he says receivers can't block, then I probably believe him. But again, how much does that matter? Like, does it matter in the grand scheme of things where we're a point away from beating Georgia and then we would have won the national championship? Not really. So, but it'll be interesting to see how that does. Hope to see more 12 to help out a young QB with Heartline now at OC. That'd be interesting if we see more 12 personnel. I don't know. Again, I think that we got to figure out who are our best 11. Obviously, when you lose a guy like Mitch Rossi, it changes how much we're going to be doing the two tight end stuff. So 12, for those of you that don't know, is one running back and two tight ends. So, in the NFL, they do a personnel system where 12 personnel, 21 personnel, 21 is two backs, one tight end, and then, whatever's left is the receivers. So, 12 personnel, which we ran an absolute ton with Mitch Rossi, is something that I can't imagine we're going to see more with Kevin Wilson not being the play caller. Because, you remember, you always got to look through the lens of who's calling the plays and what room does he work in. Brian Hartline is the wide receivers coach still. So, if anything, we're going to see less 12. We're going to see 10 personnel. We're going to see 4 or 5 wide receivers, 3. I mean, he wants to get those receivers down on the field. So, to think that we're going to see more of the two tight end look with Kevin Wilson, who was the tight ends coach and who loved 12 personnel, being gone, I can't see it. Maybe, and I love Joe Royer. I think Joe Royer and Kate are as good of a duo at tight end as there is in the country, but I just can't seeing more. What are your thoughts on that, Nevada?
Well, I think you just made a great point. I think, always look at the coordinators and then look at the room that they're coordinating. And, we'll start on defense last year. You look, Jim Knowles comes in, he's the coordinator and he's the linebacker coach. And the linebackers made one of the more miraculous transformations that I've ever seen, in 1 year with the same guys. They went from being, who are these guys, to, oh my gosh, first team All-Americans and, the Buckeye legends. I mean, Steel Chambers and Tommy Eichenberg are going to leave here as a really good pair of linebackers at Ohio State. I mean, up there with the really great pairs. So, to your point about who's the offensive coordinator now, well, the offensive coordinator now is Brian Hartline. Well, it's going to be a wide receiver centric approach. When it's Kevin Wilson and he's coaching tight ends, you're going to see a lot of moving Mitch Rossi out of the slot and moving him in there, and moving from some of those 5 wide looks to all of a sudden now you've got kind of a power run look and kind of confusing the defense with what you're showing them. I think with Hartline, it's going to be more about the wide receivers, just because he's a wide receiver. He played wide receiver. He coaches a wide receiver. He recruited the wide receivers. So what's he going to do? He's going to feature the wide receivers. So I think your point was excellent and spot on, and something people should really keep an eye on.
Well, like for instance, when I played back in, when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, Jim Bowman was the offensive coordinator, and this is something I never really thought of as an advantage as an offensive lineman. But on our Friday nights after team dinner and we did chapel, we would always have our offensive line meeting where we'd go into like one of these little conference rooms at the Blackwell Hotel, and we'd go through. We'd always have to take a test where you'd have to fill in all the spots on the test. What did you do right? What did you do wrong? You handed out an answer key, and you'd have to fix it, whatever. And he would always, the last question was, what are your favorite plays to run? And so I would always say, I like to run power to my side because I get a good double team. I like to be on the backside of our tight zone stuff because I can get a good double team. And my favorite play always was X around or Z around right, which is where Ted Ginn comes around on a reverse, because I get to get an absolute kill shot on the linebacker, which is in the Alamo Bowl. I literally killed a guy. I'd have been thrown out, probably suspended for the hit I threw. But back in the day, I used to love doing that because I used to love knocking guys out. But I would always tell him, be like, look, early in the game, and again, if Jim Bowman is just the O-line coach and he's not the play caller, then that probably goes in one ear and out the other. But like when you're talking to the guy that literally is calling the plays tomorrow, then it's a whole different calculus, because you're sitting there and I'm like, call some early 3-step drops so I can cut the guys. Because I used to love cutting defensive ends because, these guys all want to go to the NFL. They all want to have good careers. They all want to, post numbers. And it's like, when like the third play of the game, you put your helmet through their knee and it hurts really badly, then all of a sudden you're just, it's always in the back of their mind that this guy could cut me on any play coming up now. So I'd always want to get a good cut in early in the game. And Bowles would do that. And I would tell him, I'd be like, look, I'm not the coordinator. I don't want to be the coordinator. I'm not the play caller, but I'm like saying, and I'd always give honest feedback if I thought I had a good matchup where I could handle the guy, to either run behind me or run the other way. I mean, in 2005, we ran so much to me and TJ's side, the right side, that by the time we played Notre Dame, it was really hard to run to the right because they were overcompensating on defense because they self-scouted us so well. Like, I mean, we ran, I'd say 70% of our runs were to the right in 2005, which is an enormous percentage because obviously you want to be 50-50. You don't want to be super predictable, but we were really proficient running to the right. So when we played Notre Dame, man, these guys were just overcompensating like crazy. And then after the first drive is when I said, hey, if you guys run that Z around to Ted, it's going to be there all day because they are biting so hard to the right when we ran our one option play that we used to always run. And they bit and we ran that play and the action off of that option play was the Z around left, which was Ted Ginn getting the ball, coming back the other way. So the way they overcompensated, they had no chance to defend that. Once Antonio got that crack and then Doug leaked out the backside to kind of lead him up the back alley, I mean, it was just absolutely crazy how much they bit. And that's why it looked so open. When people were watching that on tape and in the stadium, they're like, there was nobody there. And I was like, well, yeah, because they were so in tune to stopping the run to the right because we did it. I mean, it was almost 80%. It was some insane number because I remember looking at our self-scout stats and how often we ran to the right, and it was like insane because that was the money side. And Rob Sims was our All-American guard. He was our left guard. He's an NFL pick, and he was a fantastic puller. So we'd run power with me and TJ getting the double team, and Robbie was a great puller, would pull around, and teams study that like crazy. So, but no, that was a great question. Like I said, you guys, your questions are fantastic. So this makes it really good. Any more coaching changes coming to Nevada? I, in my opinion, I think that we're probably, and I say this and something will happen tonight, I think we're probably set through spring, but what are your thoughts, Nevada?
Yeah, at one point in time, I would have said that there was a coach that I thought was moving on, and I thought that he'd probably move on to the NFL, probably be encouraged to move on to the NFL, and that Ohio State would be okay with that. But now I don't think that's going to happen. And like you said, invariably we'll hang up, the phone will get clicked off. I'll turn on the Cavaliers game, and then it'll be announced that XYZ coach from Ohio State is moving on to the Detroit Lions or whatever it is. But no, I think the staff should be set, and I think that's the way it's going to be going forward. But reserve the right to change my mind as information presents itself.
Yeah, because again, like these NFL staffs are starting to fill out. I mean, obviously, the Cardinals haven't hired who they're going to hire yet. Colts haven't made an official hiring yet, even though it seems like it's going to be Jeff Saturday. But depending on who gets those jobs and who knows who, like anything can happen. Like that's the thing, you can't ever hold it against us. That's what we don't really deal with absolutes saying, oh, there's no way there'll be a coaching change because again, you don't know what jobs guys get offered. Like when in 2012. We started off the year, literally the first week, Taver Johnson gets retained by Urban to be the corners coach. After 2 weeks, he gets contacted by Paul Haynes, who got promoted to be the defensive coordinator at Arkansas. And he's like, Taver, I need you to come down here and be my co-DC and linebackers coach. So Taver was gone. So then we hired Bill Sheridan. We had Bill Sheridan for, I don't know, 3-4 weeks, 5 weeks maybe. And all of a sudden, Greg Schiano gets the Tampa Bay Buccaneer head coaching job. And he calls Bill Sheridan and says, hey, Bill, I need you to be my defensive coordinator in the National Football League. And, so if you're a corners coach at Ohio State or a DC in the NFL, obviously you're going to be a DC in the NFL, make way more money, more prestige, whatever. And Schiano and him are really good friends. So he goes on to the NFL, and then we hire Kerry Combs. So Kerry was really Urban's third choice to be that corners coach, but that's why it's hard for us to say, hey, nothing will ever happen with the coaching change, because we had 3 cornerback coaches in like 3 months. That was, in Urban's eyes, initially thought that was a catastrophe, but then it ended up working out really well. Nevada, great. Oh, great. I love the Rolling Stones AVI with the Buckeye leaf on the tongue. Appreciate this, Jack. Duperiolano and Tim Walton switch positions. Nevada, your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, that's something that's been discussed, that's been out there. And so I think people can probably put 2 and 2 together in terms of what coach I was thinking about might be moving on. But I think it's a possibility. I think the fact that Tim Walton was able to do some work in the transfer portal window on such a big level, on probably the biggest get that we've had in a while. You're probably leading me to believe that wouldn't happen, but that's certainly something that could happen in the future. Both are certainly competent and capable of handling corners. Both have had a lot of success doing that. So something to keep an eye on for the future for sure.
Great question, Mark Williams. Which true freshman is most likely to play early on? For him, it is a debate between Matthews, Simpson Hunt, and Thurman. Your thoughts, Nevada?
Boy, I mean, true freshman.
I mean, it's really tough.
I mean, for me, it's not. I mean, it's Brandon Ennis. Brandon Ennis is really, really good. I mean, he's like I said, you're ever having one of these bad days. I know you like to put on the JJ Smith videos or something. Put on some Brandon Ennis tape, man. I'm telling you what, it'll put you a smile on your face. And I mean, the only thing that's got going against him is he's not an early enrollee. Could kind of make that work. But I know he's going to, try to get down during the spring, get heavy dose in the summer. But boy, he's good. He is good. Him and Tate and the Rogers boys are guys going to keep an eye on. But Brandon Ennis, I don't know how you keep Brandon Ennis off the field because he's a grown man.
How many catches do you think Brandon Ennis gets this season?
I'll say he'll get 20 catches.
That'd be insane if he got 20 catches.
Yeah, I think he's going to get 20 catches.
I just think there is such a deep position, but I mean, it'd be great if it happened. I think that it's the hardest part is it's when you get a question like that, it's more of where are we the weakest and where do we have a guy that could maybe step in and do something. And, it's hard to pick a big body. It's hard to pick O-line, D-line, just because they generally don't play early. Because there was a part of me initially that said Luke Montgomery because he could pass protect, but a true freshman lineman is almost impossible. With Jelani, he's intriguing because it'd be interesting to see if everyone in that tight end room sticks, if any of them hit the portal. Because again, like after the, this is almost like a question that I'd love for you to ask again, and I appreciate the question, Mark. But after spring ball, after that new portal window opens, and we see who takes off, because we'll have 5, 10 guys take off because they're not satisfied with their role. Um, but yeah, it's just hard because there's not a guy that really stands out to me where like I mean, I can't imagine a Josh Mickens who's a highly rated guy, defensive end. Um, I don't know. I mean, a guy that I would love to see do something is Jason Moore, just because I think that he is a dynamic pass rusher. But again, and it's at a position of need with the interior pass rush. I mean, he's 6'5", 285, and if he could give us any sort of pass rush for 5, 10 plays a game, that'd be fantastic. I just I look at the young linebackers. I don't see it just because you've got CJ and Gabe Powers waiting in the wings. But no, that's a great question. It's really thought provoking because I just it's not that I don't think some of these guys will play, but I mean, there's really good players in a lot of these positions, and some of the positions where we're thinner, maybe on the O line and the D line, like it's just hard for young guys to play. I mean, because I'd like to say Cornell Tate, I'd like to say Ennis, but we got a lot of dudes coming back. A lot. I mean, we got four. I mean, when you got our top two, obviously Emeka and Marvin, and then you've got Julian, and then you've got X, then you've got Jaden Ballard, and then you've got all the 2023s or the 2022 kids who didn't play at all. But no, that's I'd love for Brandon Ennis to start at slot though. I think that I know they love Julian. I know that Julian will be the starter just because he's the older guy and he's the same age as Marvin and Emeka. But I just I think that you have a lot more upside with Ennis than you do with Julian at this point. And again, this is what the biggest shame is, the fact that Brandon couldn't come in for spring ball because because of his school wouldn't allow him to double up his English credit. So he's stuck at American Heritage. It's got not a shot at Heritage. They've never let any kid graduate early. But, with this spring shaping up the way it is, where Marvin's not going to do anything, Emeka's not going to practice at all, Julian's not going to practice at all. Like, I mean, this would have been a time for Brandon Ennis to get in there and kind of make his mark. But it is what it is. Yeah, Mark. Mark, I appreciate you being on here. And again, keep this question and re-ask us this after spring ball, like after that portal, and we see who departs. And it'll be interesting. Um, I and Goj, I agree with this. That, they have to some special time or some time on special teams. Ezekiel had to play special teams. I think that like one of these young wide receivers has got to get Emeka Buka off of punt return. Because there's nothing that annoys me more than when you have a superstar back there having to field punts after he just played 60 plays in the game. And you've got, 15 wide receivers that don't do anything, like just standing there. So, and that was just more of a diatribe than it was an actual response to a question because he didn't really ask a question there. But any other thoughts? Jack, I'm going to put this up here, and I know Nevada's going to yawn, but we generally don't talk about the NIL collectives on here just because, it doesn't really do us any good. And most people hate talking about the collectives. So we don't mind the question. I mean, the updates, they are what they are. I think that they have to follow the Alabama model and get an official model like they did where they have one collective that's sanctioned by the university and that's it. But anything you want to say on the NIL collectives in Nevada? Because I know this is going to be about a 2-word answer.
No, they're kind of cringy. They're just kind of cringy. I don't like NIL. I know I sound like the old guy, get off my lawn, but I don't like NIL. I don't like what it's done to college football, but I think Ohio State's got a sensible approach to NIL right now. I think they're trying to use it to their advantage. Where if you're not good at something, you try not to emphasize it. You don't have great facilities. You say, "Hey, we're not looking for kids that are interested in facilities. We're looking for blue collar, hard nosed type of kids." And
Oh.
I think in this case, where if you don't have great NIL, you say, "Well, we're not looking for kids that are doing NIL," which is really the right way to do it. And I think NIL right now at Ohio State is really about gender reveals and stuff like that, and not really about getting the big players. But it's 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 cringy. It's very very cringy.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm good on the NIL stuff. That's why I don't really talk about much of it because most people don't like hearing about it. So well, we're gonna wrap this. We're at about right under an hour. Uh, Nevada, any final thoughts on today? Obviously, we are literally. I think is today what's today's date? we're literally about 1 month away from the kickoff of spring ball. Tomorrow is February 7th. March 7th is spring ball. So we got 1 month, guys, and it is back to football season. So any final thoughts, Nevada, as we wrap this show up?
No, just a great thread on by the Oracle, who's an insider with a specialty on expansion and conference play, and talking about kind of the imminent demise of the Pac-12 and the rise of the Big 12. And one of my favorite people in the world is the commissioner of the Big 12, Brett Yormark. If you guys don't know who Brett Yormark is, I mean, he's literally one of the legendary marketers in all of sports. A guy that ran marketing for NASCAR, ran the Nets when they really made a big run. Rock Nation, his brothers runs the floor pan. I mean, just an incredibly accomplished guy. And people are asking why they thought that the Big 12 had kind of survived when it looked like they were on the ropes. And I'm like, 2 words, Brett Yormark. So you can see what a commissioner can do. We've got some news about potential replacements as the Big Ten commissioner, with Warren leaving on. So yeah, lots going on. 30 days till spring ball, and it's going to be here before we know it. So I'll see you guys in the message board, and appreciate all the support.
All right, we're going to wrap this thing up. Appreciate you guys as always. We're going to jump on BuckeyeScoop.com. We literally never sleep on there. It is nonstop. Been a big buzz on the site since the Oracle put out his little, we call it the prophecy. That's the name of his little deal where he talks about who could be the next Big Ten commissioner. He's got like kind of a little list of it. He's got a lot of expansion news. So, we try to branch out from talking recruiting with Bill Greene, inside information with Nevadabuck, expansion, day-to-day recruiting. We have a ton of great content on there and a fantastic community. So if you guys want to be a part of the best Ohio State community out there, bar none, again, like you guys would be stunned if you saw some of the bigwigs at Ohio State that belong to our community. It's really cool to see their names on there, and we appreciate their support. So, but we'd love to have you. BuckeyeScoop.com, the best Ohio State experience there is. Love to have you guys. So hope you guys are doing good tonight. Again, if you could leave us a like on the way out the door, shout out where you're from in the comments. I mean, it's one of my favorite things to see where you guys are from. We got you guys from, basically every continent. I'm waiting for someone to watch from Antarctica, but we got all the other ones. So we love seeing that. It's fantastic, the spread of Buckeye Scoop and the fantastic viewership we get on this podcast. So we appreciate that. Never take it for granted. We love interacting with you guys. Thank you guys for bringing fantastic questions today. That always is fun to take your questions to see what you guys like to have answered. So again, leave us a like on the way out the door. If you guys are on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review. Those are huge for us. It helps people find the podcast. So we appreciate you guys so much. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you, Buckeye Nation, and thank you, Scoop family. Do it again tomorrow. We're going to have a blast tomorrow, and we appreciate you guys and your support. Have a good rest of your day. Go Bucks.